I'm pretty jacked up. It's Friday, and I'm doing my favorite thing in the whole world. I'm talking football. So just little announcements here. I'm sorry I'm late. No excuse. No excuse. Slasher, he's joining the show. Man, I'm pumped up for this season. I think we can get back to 2022 form pretty quickly. Yeah, I still don't understand how the Eagles just kind of fell apart. They beat the Chiefs and then just went straight on downhill spiral. I really loved your draft. I was not at all bothered by Son Reddick leaving because last year you had Nolan Smith. And I'm telling you right now, for those of you who don't know, Nolan Smith, he was the 30th pick in the draft. Remember, there was only 31 picks, not 32. And this was a guy I thought that was going top 15. It turned out to be that there were some issues about his shoulder, but the way the Eagles draft is they usually draft for 1 year in advance. This year is going to be a little different. Quinion Mitchell and DeJohn Cooper, they're both going to play. DeJean Cooper, both going to play sooner than later. But Nolan Smith's going to be a dude this year. It wouldn't even surprise me if he gets some consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to be good, folks. Hardly played it all last year, but he's going to play a lot this year. I'm not exaggerating when I think he could have like 15 sacks. He's going to be good. You also got Devin White, which I remember him just destroying my Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I remember that season. He had like 45 tackles and like 9 sacks. Or it was just something insane. But I mean, there's so many good things about the Eagles. So many good things about the Eagles. That NFC East is going to be kind of fun. Yeah, I don't see any reason. And then if Saquon Barkley stays healthy, he's the most athletically gifted running back in football. Is he the best running back in football? That's debatable. I'll be honest. I think he's a better athlete than Nick Chubb, but if I could choose one to be healthy for 17 games, it'd probably be Chubb. Probably. I think the Giants' offense over the last couple seasons been really hindered where the Eagles got so many weapons and probably a better offensive line. The Eagles are going to be a fun team. I think Norm, I want to tell you like the top 4 teams are the top 4 division winners, but I don't think that's really the case in the NFC. I think, Dallas and Philly are better than whoever wins the NFC South. Then, and so it's kind of fun because I could see, I think the Rams will give the 49ers a run for their money. And I think you guys in Dallas will be pretty hard fought. In the South, I don't know. I'd be shocked. Don't get me wrong. Green Bay did a good job last year, but I would be pretty floored if Detroit, didn't win that division. I mean, they were pretty healthy last year, kind of escaped the injury bug, but you never know. But yeah, fear if you're a fan of an NFC team, fear the Eagles because that team's loaded and dangerous. Funk's joining, man. I'm so glad to see you, brother. Slasher, I hope you all win your divisions. I just want to see how things go without Kelsey. The thing is, I could say this about the Eagles more than any other team. They drafted Cam Jurgens a couple of years ago. He's been playing at guard. He was the best center coming out of the draft. He's going to slide right in perfectly. I'm kind of worried about what they're going to do at that guard position. It'll be interesting to see what they do, but I think offensive line is not going to be a problem. I was just so shocked how they beat the Chiefs. They're 10-1, and they just nosedive. And if they recover and everything goes smooth, they're as dangerous as any team in the NFC, including your Lions. But I mean, I'm not hopefully you don't see that as a slight on your Lions, because that's a team this offseason I've been looking at wow. What I seriously, if you had to say, give me a team this offseason, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about some offseason moves, because right now I always look at it kind of like in old school. I used to love running on the track, and it's like that final turn. If you do the 400, and the 400, for those of you who don't know, I used to always start off at, start on the first turn, and then you have that straightaway, then you have that final turn, and then right around June's that final straightaway, because there's going to be a free agent period, and I'm really excited to see how some teams do. Keith sent me a message today about OBJ signing with Miami. I'd love to know what you guys think of it. I think look. He wasn't even starting in the AFC Championship game. 35 catches, 500 yards, and I think Miami's got a more talented receiving core than Baltimore. So I it's a fun thing. Hey, OBJ, what's he doing? Great. How big of a deal is it going to be for the Miami Dolphins? Perry, what's up, brother? Man, how are you doing, man? How are you doing? I'm pretty excited, man, because we're just going into that final stretch here. We're just kind of rounding that final corner, final turn, and it's football. Listen, there's a lot of exciting stories. I'm very jacked up for the football season. I'm going to switch things. I'm only going to be live on Fridays, but coming this fall, I'm toying around with something I'm calling Afternoon Delight. And basically this year, I'm going to do some college and a lot of fantasy. I'm going to try really hard to get you guys, help win you guys some fantasy football money. Going to try really hard, because I really want, if you pay attention to this show, I'm going to do everything I can to get you to win your fantasy football league. We got Matalia, Dickerson, and Lane. These three have all pro talent. They do. Beef Jurgens is extremely underrated. 2 hand picks by Cam Jurgens is really, really good. He's going to be really good. He's best offensive line coach I've ever seen. There's a lot of good ones. The Chiefs will argue Andy Heck. Hank Fraley's a really good one. Howard Mudd's probably the all-time best. The Titans are banking big on Brian Callahan's dad, Bill, a famous offensive line coach. So there's some really good offensive line coaches. It's kind of unfortunate, because offensive line coaches usually don't translate to being a head coach. There's been a few. Mike Munchak, he was an excellent coach. Excellent offensive lineman. It's funny. I'm not even sure he's going to be that. I really don't even know if he's going to be that. I really don't. Perry says OBJ is going to be option 3 or 4 with the Fins. I'm not sure. I'm really not. Look, you know what? It was funny, because he actually played really well in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, because for those of you that don't remember, and I love talking about this, Zay Flowers, after the fumble, got mad, smashed his hand down, cut his hand open, and they had to fix it up, so they put in Odell Beckham. And Odell Beckham was doing a really great job in the game, but I just remember thinking to myself, well, the Chiefs fans are having a hard time admitting this, but this is honest to God truth. The Chiefs really didn't win the AFC. Baltimore lost it, because they abandoned the run. Then their number one receiver, who was a rookie, immaturity issues, hurts his hand, Odell Beckham played pretty awesome. But here you are in the AFC Championship game, and you're going against Kansas City, and Odell Beckham's doing what I'm doing. He's sitting down. I mean, he wasn't even playing until Flowers got hurt, a rookie. So, but yeah, Funk says, I'm going to skip some comments here, but yeah, it comes down to whether it gels with the locker room. I'll be honest with you. I have no idea. And I don't think Miami does. It's kind of, I'll be honest with you. It's kind of a strange fit. And people are going to make it sound like he's going to be like that slot guy, that intermediate guy. Oh, he was coming back from injury. Look, sometimes you hit the mid-30s and you just slow down. And that's how it is in football. That's how it is in football. You get over 30 and some guys aren't the same, especially guys that have had multiple injuries. And that's just the way life is. That's it. It's a hard fact. Listen, the OBJ is a great dude. I mean, he's a great guy. It's different for every team. I don't have all the schedules pulled up. I know that the NFL schedule release is coming soon. Depending on my schedule, which is the reason why I have to switch my schedules due to new job. And, I'm not going to bore you with my personal life, but, I could take Fridays off for right now, to do this, but Tuesday is no longer an option. Depending on when the schedule releases, I'm going to try to either do a video or go live because I want to go over the schedule. I don't know when it's coming. It's different for every team. I'd have to go take a look at the websites. I'm not too concerned about the rookie mini camps. I'm going to follow training camps. Not that I want to see things. I'm just going to follow to find out who's hurt, who's not, who's coming in, who's holding out. I'm more concerned about that. Like, there was a Patrick Mahomes, his first year going into training camp, all we heard, man, he's throwing a lot of interceptions in training camp. We should be worried about this guy. Well, he did okay. Had that MVP, 5,050. That was okay. It was okay. So I don't pay attention to stuff like that. Remember Jamar Chase? Everybody was concerned that he was dropping passes. He was fine. I'm not too concerned about those things. But I do want to hear if a player's hurt. So. Yeah, Fraley. I remember Fraley as a player, but Fraley's a good one. There's some really good offensive line coaches, and it's kind of a shame because not too many of them get a chance to be offensive coordinators and head coaches. But the good ones, good organizations pay for offensive line coaches. Good organizations pay. And Andy, I don't know the number, but I guarantee Andy Heck's a millionaire. He's the Chiefs offensive line coach. I guarantee you he's a millionaire. At this point, he need to be consideration season if he wants to keep going. If you're talking about OBJ, let's just take a look here. I'm going to go to our lands here. If I can get on without all the I forgot that this. God. Never mind. I can't use our lands. So when you go to our lands, you have to deal with like a billion pop-ups. So, if you're talking about OBJ, I'm going to use ESPN's not very good. Let's just be honest. But there's other sites, but I'm looking at the Dolphins. You got Braxton Berrios, who was basically used kick punt returner. They really haven't used him much on offense. And I'm looking at the rest of their receiving core, and I think you may be right. OBJ may be option 3, and they do play 3 wide receiver sets. I'm looking at some of these guys. Tage Washington was a 7th round pick. He's a guy I kind of liked out of USC, but he's not in every down. He's more of special teams guy. They got Jonnu Smith. I forgot about that. I just wasn't thinking. River Carcraft. I don't even know who that is. Wow. It's really funny. I was sitting here thinking, the OBJ may actually be a good signing. I'm looking at some of these receivers. Oh, man. Because I'm going to be honest. Every time I watch the Dolphins play, I always end up saying the same thing. I always go, wow, Jalen Waddle is so good. I'm always, every time I watch the Miami Dolphins, I always end up floored by how good Jalen Waddle is. And he signed they got him on the 5th-year extension, but he's a guy that's going to get a lot of money soon. A report came out. Some GM thinks Holmes is being the smart guy in the room, get a big head. I actually could see that because I'd have to go through and double check, but didn't you give up a 3rd and a 4th in next year's draft to trade up for players that really weren't rated as high as where you drafted them late? I know you gave up a 3rd for that British Columbia tackle, which I didn't like at all. ESPN is reporting the Utah player as a safety. Funk hit me up and he's like, no, they're going to use him as a running back and he's going to return kicks and punts. And a lot of teams have been drafting special teams players. And I responded, I said, I think that's a good move. And I actually watched him play. It's Sioke. Sioke. I think his best position's running back. I actually watched them both. And he's the type of guy that, when you I think what was he, a 5th round pick? Let's be honest, he's not a guy that is going to overtake Gibbs or Montgomery, but he is a guy that, could get about 50 touches this year on offense, barring injury. And I think it's very important that you have a guy back there. But I actually like him as a running back. I would not like it if you went into the season and you said, hey, look, we need about 200 touches on offense from this guy. I'd be like, oh God, you're in trouble. But, there's not too many teams that got a better 1-2 punch at running back than the Detroit Lions, but getting him as your number 3 guy or number 4 guy and place on special teams, I like it. But yeah, I could see that. I could see that, but I do like it, the Utah player better as a running back than a safety, and I really like the fact that you're getting a lot of teams drafted special teams guys. I think there's 4 or 5 kickers chosen in the draft. Chicago got a punter. The new special teams rules, I'm kind of looking. I'm on the fence on it because listen, guys, I'm an old school guy. I'm an old school guy, and I don't like when things change this dramatic. But I do want to say this, that I think it could be kind of cool. And I actually expect there to be an uptick in special teams touchdowns. I don't think you're going to see a guy with like 12 or anything ridiculous. I think the record is 7 kick returns in a season. Is somebody have to quote? I know Dante Hall had 6 or 5. But I think there's going to be a lot more special teams touchdowns this year. It'll be fun. Branch is in a walking boot. Joseph had hip surgery. They both played hurt in the playoffs. I just hope they're both to go by training camp. You know better than I do, but my guess would be, because it's been several months, that they should be fine. It wouldn't surprise me. By the way, look, let's be honest, because Branch is second-year guy, it would be nice but he's a guy that I would be okay if he just skipped training camp and was okay for like the final couple weeks of preseason. So, and Joseph, I think is fine. You say that it's kind of funny how desensitized we are when it comes to injuries, because you're like an ACL and you're like, oh, that's just, he'll be fine in 6 months. Well, I remember you messed up your ACL that ended your career. A normal person, I'll use myself for example. I haven't torn an ACL, but if I did tear an ACL, I would be in really bad shape. It's kind of funny how desensitized we are to these injuries, but I expect both of them to be okay by the start of training camp. I do too, Perry. Yeah, it was funny. I didn't think about it until I started going through the Dolphins roster, because I was like, there's got to be somebody better. And God, there is nothing in that receiving core. They got some decent tight ends. I didn't like the Jalen Wright pick. Now keep in mind, I like the Jalen Wright value. I like the Jalen Wright player, but you had A-Chain, you had Jeff Wilson, you had Raheem Mostert. You got all these guys, your fourth option, even though he's going to be a special teams guy as well. It just seemed excessive. So we stayed healthy. We stayed mostly. Yeah, the Chiefs. That was another thing that I say this all the time. A lot of times it's not the best team in football's team that was healthiest. The Chiefs got really lucky. Nick Bolton missed several weeks during the middle of the season. He had a problem like his first 1 or 2 games back, but in the playoffs he was back to form, one of the best middle linebackers in football. So it was kind of lucky in a way that he got hurt when he did, because he came back, and by the time the playoffs started, he was at 100% and played pretty well. They got some really tough decisions coming up. They got rid of a bunch of players. Waddle, they're still messing around with Tua's contract. They still got some defensive players. I like the fact they picked up Jalen Phillips' 5th round deal. And he's a guy that I still think like the best is ahead of him, even though it's kind of surprising. I thought he'd been in the league just a year or two. He's 2021. I was like, oh crap, because I remember him and Gregory Rousseau coming out of the draft, and the question was, which Miami defensive player do you like better? And it was hard to say, but Jalen Phillips is a guy, even though he's young, I bet, but he's been in the league. This will be year 4. They already picked up this 5th-year contract, but he's a guy that just ascending talent. And you have Bradley Chubb on the other side, and then you drafted Chop Robinson. Dolphins are kind of a team like it's I see what they're doing. It's just kind of weird. A lot of speed, a lot of athleticism. Tua kind of really doesn't fit what they want to do, to be honest, but they're determined to make it work. We still have a 4th next year. The 4th we gave up is whichever one's lowest between ours and the Philly pick we got for Swift. Okay. Yeah, okay. So you gave up a 3rd, but you did give up a 3rd and a 4th. So, but that's smart that you had one to burn. I didn't really consider that, because I did forget that it was a 2025 4th for Swift. I kind of forgot about that. So most people are saying a special teams guy, and we'll be developing the safety. Are you talking about the running back? Because Funk was saying he's going to be playing running back and special teams, and that's smart that people are bringing more and more special teams guys in. And that's something about the NFL, is that the Chiefs did that with the rugby player. He's going to be doing special teams. I'm drawing a blank on his name. And then there's a lot of draft picks that are going to be used late in the draft that I know are going to play special teams. Like I mentioned, that Miami Dolphins receiver, Taj Washington, he's going to be he's going to be like a punt returner. So if you're going to go all in and give up draft capital, you do it now, not on projects. Exactly. And that's why I didn't like it, is that you got this tackle from British Columbia. That's a project that I'm speculating and I'm just guessing. It kind of looks like what they're doing is that they want him to play right tackle and you're trying to move Penei Sewell over to the left side. I don't like that at all, but that's kind of the way it looks like what they're doing, unless you want to take him and play him on the inside, and he's a developmental guard because he played tackle in Canada, and you got some age on at guard. So like, hey, look, sit for a year. We're going to put you at guard next to Penei Sewell. That would be fun, but I'm not really sure. You guys have to tell me, because I honestly don't know. They claimed the change on kickoffs were for player safety. If they wanted player safety, it would make grass mandatory and give out fines for knee hits. It's about trying to create big plays. Funk, you're speaking. If the NFL really cared about player safety, here's what they would do. Here's what they would do. Every stadium would have grass. They would go back to leather helmets. Leather. If you had the old school leather helmet, you wouldn't be trying to use it as a projectile weapon. You wouldn't, because it's leather, and you would have additional padding on the inside. That would protect you from concussions. It really would. A lot of people make it sound like it's not really the exterior. It's the interior of the helmets. It's funny because I remember playing high school. I didn't even need a chin strap because like there was like a red spot right here where the helmet would like crush on your head. The NFL helmets, every player helmet comes off every other play. And what it is that who cares about how hard the exterior is? It's really the interior. If you had the old school leather helmets and specialized interior rubber composite or whatever you want to call it, that would protect players. But grass, that would be the number one thing, would be grass. And I hate going after knees. I've always hated that. But the NFL, I thought it was going to be a big deal when I call it the Brady rule, where you can't hit a quarterback below the knee, and then you can't hit him in the head, and and then you can't hit him that hard at all. It's you would also increase padded player practices. And that's something that the NFLPA was really hard about, but that's something that you would actually want to increase, because a lot of times players, only hit, I don't know the exact schedule, but there's a very limited amount of player practices. You really should be in pads much, much more than they are. Grass, more padded practices, more hitting in practice. And then, I agree. Get rid of the knee hits, but the hip drop thing, I didn't like. I don't like that rule. A few other rules I didn't like either, but big scoring plays for big money in the league's eyes. I want to see big time defensive plays, but I was a strong safety. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think it's a lot more fun to watch like a great defensive matchup when it's 6-3 and just you got defensive players going all over the field. I'd be honest, I loved this year's Chiefs team more than I loved last year's, because the defense was so much fun to watch. I mean, I got a kick out of L'Jarius Sneed just destroying people. Drawing a blank on the kid's name. That's bad when you're drawing a blank on your player's name. First team All-Pro nickel corner, and it was debatable, but I'm drawing a blank on his name. Nick Bolton, Chris Jones. I mean, George Karlaftis. To me, the NFL's. By the way, I'll let you in on a secret. NFL stadiums love defense. Offense is better on TV, but if you watch a game live, a great defense is so much more fun. So much more fun. You will have so much more. If you ever go to a game and your team has a great defense and they're just hitting, sacking the quarterback, intercepting passes, that's so much more fun than if your defense puts up 45. I'm telling you this for an absolute fact. I remember Marty Ball. We got our season tickets in '89 when the Chiefs had Marty Ball, and Marty Ball was the most fun I ever had at a stadium. Then came in the Dick Vermeil era, and it was like a golf clap. It'd be like a 38-35 shootout, and you're not really that enthusiastic about it. And I wish I could articulate this better, but if you watch a game live, you always will enjoy it more if your team has a great defense rather than if your team had a great offense. I'm telling you, this is an absolute fact. I'm not the only one. Arrowhead became the loudest stadium on earth because of a great defense. Now, keep in mind, the record was set when Andy Reid was there, but I'm telling you, I've been to a lot of games, and that was a good one. The one that set the 142.2 decibel level. That was a good one, but there was games in the 90s that was much louder and much more fun. Take my word for it. Perry, you're 100% correct. The NFL is doing an NBA, going to be an offensive league. It's funny too, because I started watching basketball during the Jordan era, and I watched the 2 years he was playing baseball, and then I watched a little bit after, and then I watched a little bit of LeBron. The last time I watched I'm trying to think, the last time I watched basketball, LeBron was in Cleveland losing to Golden State, so whatever year that was. And in the 90s with those tough defenses, that's when basketball to me was entertaining. I'll be honest, NBA does not do anything for me at all. I always say this though, playoff basketball is a lot more fun than regular season basketball, but I haven't watched an NBA game in a long time, and it just doesn't do anything. Yeah, that's what you told me. ESPN has him as a safety. And I agree. I think he would be an upgrade over Reynolds, who has that great story. So most recent news I heard on both linemen is they're trying to make them both into guards because it makes sense when we realize Zittler's on a 1-year deal. Frank could retire anytime because of injuries. Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm like kind of thinking would make more sense. But when I watch him, when I say watch him, like I watch a lot of British Columbia, when they drafted him and I watched him play and I saw like the workout and I saw the body type, and if I'm correct, he played right tackle in British Columbia. It made sense that that's a right tackle. But Zeitler is on a 1-year deal, and you're trying to develop a guy. I get that. I get the logic, okay? I would have liked it if the Lions said, well, who's a guy that can help me win a Super Bowl this year? And I don't have the whole draft in front of me right now, but if I did pull it up, I'm pretty sure I could find 5 or 6 players that would be better in 2024 than the offensive linemen. So if the NFL cared about player safety, there would be less games in the season. Perry, you're preaching to the choir. I would love it if the NFL went back to a 14-game schedule and had 2 bye weeks. And here's another thing, get rid of Thursday night football except for the season opener and Thanksgiving. 14-game schedule, 2 bye weeks, make it 4 months long, and then do the playoffs. And they're going to extend the playoffs. It's just a matter of time. I heard something, I'm not sure when, but sooner or later, instead of the 7, it's going to go to 8. there'll be 8 playoff teams. I'm just not sure when. Yeah, he could be a steal. I would never. I'm drawing a blank on who that kid is. I'm not going. I may not know anything about him. Oh, actually, I do know it. Okay, so your 6th round picks, Mekhi Wingo was a guy I thought that would go like in the 4th round. That was a good pick. But Christian Mahogany, that's a guy I also heard about. He's a guy that's going to make your team. Yeah, so ESPN does report that Sion Vakai is a safety. But yeah, I actually forgot about Christian Mahogany. Christian Mahogany might play some this year at guard. That's actually a pretty good player. Perry, they just need to go up to a 16-man roster instead of 53, and when they go to 18 games. And you're right, Funk. They're going to hit 18 in the next couple of years. It's coming pretty soon. I think definitely by 2028, maybe by 2026. 2 bye weeks and only have 2 preseason games. You're 100% right. And then when they do that, they're going to go up to 60, maybe 65. They also have the international exception. So the Chiefs that are using that rugby player, you guys using the British Columbia player. That's by the way, that's an exception pick. So you get an extra spot on your roster, which is kind of a neat thing. And I know Brad Holmes is running the team, but John Dorsey, who helped the Chiefs win their first Super Bowl, and I've said this many times, John Dorsey, there's not 10 other people in the Chiefs organization, players, coaches, front office, more responsible for that 2019 Super Bowl than John Dorsey, who's with the Detroit Lions. There's so many similarities to what the Lions are doing that the Chiefs did with Andy Reid. And if I remember right, Dorsey was like going 2018, 2017, something like that. But he brought over LDT. It's Dr. Tardif. It's Lunarne Darty. Chiefs fans just called him LDT. But they drafted him in the 6th round, and people are like, what the hell are you doing? And he's going to med school? What the hell? And the Chiefs let him go to medical school. They allowed him, to come back and practice and what have you. And then he finished medical school, and he, boom, plug and play guard. And he was really good. He was actually really good. So, I mean, this is something that even though Dorsey's not and somebody left a crappy comment. I took it off because I'm like, dude, if I don't know you, you're not going to name call me. I would let somebody like Funk name call me because Funk's been with me for a long time. Perry, if you wanted to, Denver Gator does every now and then. Not often, but he does. Yeah, if you're a regular, you want to call me a name, I'll let it slide. Somebody I don't know, and the first comment I see is you calling me names, but he was right because I kept on calling Dorsey the assistant general manager. He's got some other title, but there's so many similarities to what the Kansas City Chiefs are doing and what the Detroit Lions are doing. There really is. And by the way the Detroit Lions are improving, case in point, 2018, they lost the AFC Championship game. 2019, they go to a Super Bowl. That's not bad. That's not bad. I don't think there's any Chiefs. Actually, there is. There is a few Chiefs fans that are still bitter about that game. I'm gonna tell you something. I was at that game, and the Patriots had the better team. And I remember when they beat the Rams in the Super Bowl, I said the dynasty's over, and it wasn't. Just drop the preseason games and add to the playoff games instead. They're going to keep preseason around for. I think they're going to keep preseason around. Believe it or not, there was a time there were 6 preseason games, but they're going to keep preseason games around. They are because they fill the stadiums. Was it the Kickoff Classic or whatever it is, the Hall of Fame Bowl or whatever it is. It's kind of a big deal, and networks make a lot of money off of it. So they're going to keep preseason around. Here's the deal. I actually used to love going to the preseason games because it was a lot of fun. You see a bunch of players. You don't care if you lose a preseason game. Which the only time you get mad at a preseason game is if somebody gets hurt. That's the only time. But preseason games can be a lot of fun. Usually it's during the summertime. You know, I'm not going to tell a story. But anyway, I had some girl wearing a bikini top bought me a beer once. So it was kind of cool. So sometimes the preseason games are like concerts. You know, you get a different type of crowd, a lot of drinking. They don't care if you win or lose. You know, it's summertime, so you got, you know, like I said, there was one girl, she was just wearing a bikini top and, you know, cut off jean shorts. Yeah, she bought me a beer. It was kind of funny. Kind of funny story. Maybe I should tell it, but I won't. I haven't been able to watch basketball in a long time. Once they changed the hand checking rules and they got, it's, yeah, I tried getting to like LeBron, but as talented as I think LeBron is, it's just, you know, I just wasn't really, you know, don't get me wrong. Like I think very highly of LeBron and everything, but it just wasn't the same. Holmes is building for the future in the draft, says he fills holes in free agent period, which he did. And by the way, yeah, I agree with all those things. It's just that when I looked at the Detroit Lions going into the draft, I really, really, really thought that they were going to take advantage of this time to try to get to that Super Bowl instead of building for the future. And look, you got a team in San Francisco that has definitely taken a step back. I think they did a good job in the draft. Don't get me wrong, but did the 49ers take a step back? Absolutely, they did. And this was a good chance for Detroit to overtake them. And I really don't think they took advantage of it. I have to look at the Chiefs undrafted free agents as well. Mahogany fell down. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I'm going to tell you something. I understand why NFL teams will have an issue with that, but I can tell you this: it doesn't affect him at all because he's used to it. You know, you don't notice things like that. So, oh my God, look at this! We have the great one, the talent. The B and the Backtalk brothers. Gooch. Gooch says the Chiefs are actually not using the exception on the rugby player. They're using it on the O-lineman that they used it on last year. LRZ has to earn his way into 53. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I thought they were using the exception on the rugby player. Not the offensive lineman. So I got turned around, and I'm drawing a blank on who the offensive lineman is. I know they have a foreign player on the offensive line. I do know that. I'm just drawing a blank on who it is. LRZ has to earn his way into the 53, and he's going to do it on special teams. He's going to do it on special teams. I was told at first it was like he's going to play receiver, and then it's like, well, maybe I'll play running back. He's going to make his NFL living on special teams. Supposedly at like 230, he ran like a 4.42 or something like that. There was a guy coming into the chat who was really high on him. I think they were both from New Zealand or wherever he's from, but kind of excited about this. And by the way, he'll be fun to watch in preseason. So, I mean, I'm kind of excited because I can't wait to see what he does in preseason. You never know. You never know, because, I mean, every now and then there's a player who just jumps out, and you know, you remember Victor Cruz? Like, nobody knew who this guy was. He blew up in preseason. Then he had a couple of years where he was a 1,000-yard receiver. I remember Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis was like fourth on the depth chart, and then he made a play on special teams and they gave him some carries because of that play. He ends up in the Hall of Fame. And he does that because of special teams and an opportunity he got in preseason. Russell Wilson, remember he beat out, I'm drawing a blank on the kid's name, played college, but Matt Flynn in preseason. Geno Smith beat out Drew Lock because Drew Lock got COVID. Not same thing, but, there's always some good storylines in preseason regarding a team. So it's something I'm excited about. But, yeah, I'm excited to see the rugby player. And, by the way, he I don't know all of it, but the way I understand it is that, let's say that he gets cut, he could be an international exception for another team. More and more teams are using things like this, and it's kind of cool. What the NFL doesn't realize, which is kind of obvious to me, is that with these extended rosters, you can get more and more defensive linemen, and you don't need them to know the whole defensive playbook. You could just get a defensive end that you sign up off the street, and then, hey, on third down, hey, just go rush the passer. Well, the offensive line's the same 5 guys. It doesn't sound like much, but if you're 300 and some pounds, and then like let's say you run a screen pass or there's a draw, and you got to sprint downfield, and then you got to come back to the huddle, then you got to line up, and then next thing you know, you got a 300-pound guy trying to get your quarterback. It's not as easy as it sounds. It really wears you out. But on the defensive side of the ball, they're rotating guys in left and right, and that's why that's why sacks have gone up. That's why defense went up last year. Points went down. The NFL hasn't figured that out yet. And what they really need to do is figure out that, hey, listen, good defense. People tune in for good defenses. Most people think higher points, higher ratings. Hopefully they figure out that good defense will equal higher ratings. So, and by the way, I am going to do a lot of fantasy football advice this year. That's kind of the plan. But what I kind of wanted to do is go over some of these rookies. I want to give some predictions. Last year, rookie of the year was CJ Stroud. If you have a quarterback that plays pretty decent, he's going to win rookie of the year. Okay. And now the rookie quarterbacks, Caleb Williams has a chance. He's got a lot of weapons. Okay. Jaden Daniels, I think, has a great chance. McCarthy, he's going to have Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. And so he's going to have a good opportunity. I think those 3 here, and I'm not saying anything bad about Drake May, or Bo Nix, but the thing is, though, is I really think that AFC East, I think defensively, those defenses are really going to cause May some problems early on. And I'll be honest, Bo Nix, I think it'll be a little more of a transition because Sean Payton's offense is I think a little more intricate and difficult to learn. So I'm kind of taking Bo Nix and Drake May out of rookie of the year conversations. Those 3 quarterbacks and Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy, and Jaden Daniels, I think those 3 have a really good chance. I haven't looked up the odds yet, but if I had to guess who would be the favorite, it has to be Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he's the number 1 receiver for a quarterback that has had times where he was a MVP, top 5 MVP candidate. And if Kyler Murray stays healthy, he's an MVP candidate. He really is. I mean, the talent's crazy. It really is. And who's going to be his number 1 target? It's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, as soon as he steps on practice field, he's the Cardinals' best receiver. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably, in my opinion, if I had to put money down who's offensive rookie of the year, I'm probably saying Marvin Harrison Jr., but There is one other. It's actually funny. His teammate Trey Benson, the 3rd-round pick out of Florida State, who's going to play running back, I think may have a better opportunity. He's going to get more touches than Marvin Harrison Jr., I think. But the issue is that James Conner, I almost forgot his name. James Conner is going to get the touchdown. So here's what you could see potentially in Arizona. You could have James Conner get 15 carries, 45 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then Trey Benson have 15 carries for 90 yards, which is twice as much. But which running back had a better game? 15, 45, and 2, or 15 and 90? And the 15, 45, 2 is always going to get a little more highlights. You're always going to pay attention to the 2 touchdowns, 1 yard, 90 yards. But I could see something like that happening. I could see Trey Benson cracking 1,000, and then I could see I could see Connor getting over 10 touchdowns. But that's a guy that I would really strong. By the way, if you do fantasy football, Trey Benson, that's a guy keep an eye on in the later rounds, because that's a guy I really, really like. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I go back to Peyton Wilson, late 3rd-round pick out of the Steelers. And Lions fans, don't get mad, but last year, Jack Campbell's first linebacker, off-ball linebacker, chosen in the draft. And I love Jack Campbell. I said, whoever drafts him is going to get a really good player. He's a guy that's going to be 125, 3-3. Really good player. I know that his numbers were not bad. They weren't off the chart last year, but they weren't bad. They're pretty good. Peyton Wilson, if you watch Peyton Wilson play and then you watch Jack Campbell play at Iowa, there's no debate who the better player is. It's Peyton Wilson, and what he did is just crazy. I don't know his numbers. I think it was like 125 tackles, 6 sacks, 4 interceptions, pair of pick sixes against Clemson. All he has to do is stay healthy, and I think he's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And he's a late 3rd-round pick. And that's just something I just Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm looking because it's kind of funny. I started looking at the 2025 draft, and it's just the opposite. Because this year there's going to be, what was it? The first defensive player was at 15. We'll probably have some quarterbacks, but there's probably going to be 20 to 25 defensive players chosen in the first round. It's going to be a defensive heavy draft next year, where this year was an offensive heavy draft. But who's going to win? I look, Latu, Dallas Turner's a guy probably could have double-digit sacks. Leatu, I mean, there's 2 good edge rushers there in Indianapolis, but I have a hard time believing Latu. You don't draft first defensive player off the board and have him sit on the bench. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see what he does. But I could see him and Dallas Turner getting double-digit sacks year one. It's not inconceivable, but look at the situation Peyton Wilson goes to in Pittsburgh, and again, Lions fans, don't get mad, but Jack Campbell. Look at the front 7 that he had in front of him. Now look at the Steelers' front 7. You got pass rushers, you got space eaters, you have a better defensive system, you got playmakers on the outside and behind you. Him and Patrick Queen have an opportunity to never leave the field because they can do everything. So Rookie of the Year, I'm looking through some of the. I'll give you a dark horse defensive Rookie of the Year. Braylon Trice out of Washington went to Atlanta in the 3rd round. That's your best pass rusher. There's a good chance he may have 12 sacks as a rookie. I know that sounds really crazy, but that's definitely a possibility. Could you have one of these offensive linemen that was taken? Could you have one of them win Rookie of the Year? I think it's much more likely a left tackle like J.C. Latham would win versus a right tackle that you have in Joe Alt. If J.C. Latham plays lights out and Tennessee wins 12 games, which don't get me wrong, I think it's much more likely Latham plays lights out than Tennessee wins 12 games. I would, no disrespect to Titans or Titans fans, more likely to win 6, not 12. Could Latham win Rookie of the Year? Yeah, maybe. It's unlikely. I really unlikely. So hopefully Martin starts sometime this year. Martin could develop into a good nose tackle. That would be great. I kind of expect that. And I've been kind of, like I said, the Chiefs did the same thing with a guy called Dontari Poe. Just this massive dude out of Memphis. He was like 346. They actually drafted him instead of Fletcher Cox, which I argued for a while was a good move. And then Dontari Poe had back fusion surgery. And they were talking about him being out for the whole year. He didn't miss a game, but he was never the same player. Never the same guy. And it's just a shame because there was a couple of years where I was like, oh my God, this guy's doing some crazy stuff. And it never really materialized after the fusion surgery. And I'm not dogging him. I mean, if I had back fusion surgery, and I would be probably permanently, affected differently as well. So, yeah. But Broderick Martin, or was it Broderick or Dominic? I forget which one, but I remember he's out of Western Kentucky. That was the same type of dude. He's like 330. He's got good movement. He's just raw. And by the way, you don't need him to be a star. What was special about Dontari Poe is that he was the nose tackle in a 3-4 defense. And then on third down, he stayed on the field. They moved him to defensive end. And he was 346, so you have to double team him. And then Chiefs had Justin Houston and Tamba Ali on each side. So in 2014, Justin Houston had 22 sacks. The reason why is that you had to double team Dontari Poe, who didn't leave the field. Here's the dude who's 336, never ran out of gas. And I remember because I went to training camp in 2013, and I was like, who's 92? And then me and my buddy's like, oh, shit, that's Dontari Poe. Because he went from, like, playing a nose tackle, just being like a square. He just transformed his body completely. Like, we didn't even recognize him. Like, he lost weight. He went from, like, 350 to 330. Now, at the combine, he was 346 and ran, like, a 4.86, if I remember right. That's when he was, like, a third, fourth round pick. And then they saw the 4.86. And then the movement skills, he looked like a linebacker going through drills. And it's like, oh, wow. I don't know what he did. Do you remember the PX 120 or 160 or whatever it was? There was rumor he did that. He didn't look like the same guy, and he played all day. So he lined up as a 5 tech on obvious passing situations. And then Justin Houston was just outside of him and got 22 sacks. This was a problem because that was he tried to get a new contract in 2013, and Dorsey played hardball with him and said, you got to prove it in 2014. Then he gets 22 sacks. So he was asking for 60, ended up with over 100 million. So, and that was mainly because of Dontari Poe having this crazy athleticism where he didn't need to leave the field. A lot of Chiefs fans didn't realize that. But listen, when you're 330 and you play almost every single snap of a game, that's impressive. In today's era, and this is just 10 years ago, that wouldn't happen because they would just rotate guys in. There's third down specialists. And that's one thing about all these players and the players exception and the practice squad that's changing is that more and more of these teams are just signing defensive linemen off the street because here's what you have to learn for the defense. It's third and long. Quarterback's going to pass. Go get him. There you go. That's it. I just trained an NFL defensive lineman on what to do. There's your whole playbook. And that's why the scoring went down last year, is because you had so many defensive linemen that could just come off the bus, arrive week 9 of the NFL season. Hey, what do I need to know? Well, there's the quarterback back there. Go get him. There you go. That's all the coaching you need. And with Martin, it'll be just the opposite, because what will happen is they want him to be disruptive on first and second down. And then what they could do is that they could just bring some guys off the street. And by the way, don't you guys, was it James Houston? He was injured most of last year, a 240-pound defensive end, outside linebacker, edge, whatever you want to call him. Then you bring him in on fourth down. The guy that never leaves the field, though, is Aiden Hutchinson. And I really wanted the Lions to get a guy like that. I really think they should have got a guy like that in this draft. There was some good guys later in the draft that they could have got, and they passed instead. But you're 100% correct. If Martin shows up, there's a good chance. And you guys got BJ Reader, a guy I'm so happy to get out of Cincinnati. That's a really good player too. That was another thing. I was going through like draft grades and everything, and I was kind of well, I wasn't surprised, but like a lot of people didn't like what the Bengals did in the draft. I loved what they did because they got a couple good defensive tackles. One of them's a kind of a space eater. The other one's the guy from Michigan who's going to be a really good player. So, but yeah. I do want to touch base on this too. This fantasy football tidbit and potential, if you want to do like a dark horse rookie of the year, a guy that I think may surprise and be a candidate to win rookie of the year or offensive rookie of the year or rookie of the year. He may be a candidate to win both. And the more and more I think about it, the more and more I like it. Roman Wilson, the receiver out of Michigan who went to Pittsburgh. I'm not sure George Pickens is ready to be the number one guy. A lot of people may not remember this, but Russell Wilson was a third-round pick. And the Seahawks signed Matt Flynn to that big contract because he had that record-setting game against the Lions. And Pete Carroll said, Pete Carroll always had that philosophy, hey, whoever's the best player plays. And by the way, not every NFL team does that. Most NFL teams don't. If there's a first-round pick or a big-time free agent, that guy's going to be the starter. For example, Pittsburgh, I don't care how well Justin Fields plays. I don't care how well, like in training camp, if Justin Fields is doing everything, if he's like the second coming of Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and whatever, it's not going to matter. Russell Wilson's going to be a starting quarterback. And they can do whatever, but I'm telling you right now, Russell Wilson's going to be a starting quarterback. Doesn't matter how good Justin Fields plays. A lot of teams are like that, but Pete Carroll wasn't. Pete Carroll's like the best player plays. I don't care. He did that at USC and it worked. He did that in Seattle and it worked, and he gave Russell Wilson a chance. They went into preseason. He outplayed Matt Flynn, and I think he's going to go in Canton someday. I need to step it up this year. Their games, their games don't have any impact. Are you talking about Martin? We're gonna find out. But I can see Roman Wilson. I'm not sold on George Pickens. I'm sold on George Pickens as an athlete. The potential is crazy, but when I look at George Pickens, I see a guy I'm not convinced he can be like an every down guy. I'm not convinced he's going to be great every week. Let's say that. I'm not convinced he's got the maturity. Roman Wilson, on the other hand, is a guy who's not near the athlete or the physical specimen George Pickens is, but this dude's going to work hard. He's going to buzz. I think that there's a really good chance that he's going to be the guy Russell Wilson looks at and says, look, 3rd and 7, I'm going to you. And I think realistically, he could do like 70 catches, 800 yards, 6-7 touchdowns. This could be the guy who also could go 90 to 100 catches for 1,200 yards, 7-8 touchdowns. I think there's a good chance Roman Wilson ends up being the number 1 receiver in Pittsburgh because they got some other weapons. They got Freiermuth. They got 2 running backs. They drafted 9 offensive linemen. I'm being facetious. They drafted 3. I think 2 are going to start, even though they didn't start Broderick Jones till late in the year for whatever reason. I think Fatanu's going to start. Jackson Powers Johnson's going to be your center. Sorry, he's the Raiders. He's going to be the Raiders center. Zach Frazier, the kid out of West Virginia. So Hutch is not consistent game in and game out. He don't break off well from offensive guard or offensive tackle. And, I'll be honest, that was the one thing I really, really, really wanted the Lions to do in this draft was get another edge rusher, get another outside linebacker. It was funny. I mentioned Braylon Trice. I would have loved to see somebody like Braylon Trice opposite Aiden Hutchinson. And you could, by the way, the Falcons got him early in round 3. If you didn't trade up, which, by the way, I love to trade up for Terrion Arnold. I'm not saying that was a bad move, but there was a lot of really good edge rushers that you could have gotten this draft. Even after your 3rd round pick, there were some guys later on down the line I really thought might have been able to earn a starting spot because it kind of looks like what the Lions are going to do is kind of rotate guys on the other side and then have Hutchinson and then a rotation. I really, really wanted them to get somebody. I really did. And I also wanted a wide receiver. Roman Wilson, I would have loved for Detroit. Roman Wilson and Amon-Ra on the field together, have fun, man. That was another thing is I know you had to give a lot of money to Amon-Ra, but God, it would have been fun. There was some good. Matter of fact, it was funny. The Patriots drafted, I think it was Jalen Polk out of Washington early in the 2nd. I thought it was a major reach, but then they drafted Javon Walker in, I think it was the 4th round, 4th or 5th, and I'm like, I think I like Walker better. Walker, you could have grabbed Walker in the 4th. That would have been a lot of fun to watch. Pressure means you got to the quarterback too late. If a quarterback play with a defense around it, mean you fail to stop the play. Sometimes the quarterback gets rid of the ball, and that pressure is almost as good as a sack because the quarterback has to throw the ball away. If you pressure the quarterback and he goes to option B, and that ends up being a first down or a completion or what have you, then pressure is not any good. And that's one of the many issues I have with those morons at PFF that will see a guy chasing the quarterback and totally ignore the results and be like, oh, he got a pressure. Well, yeah, it resulted in 98-yard touchdown. So no, it's not really a good pressure. But if you get after the quarterback and you don't get him down on the ground, but you end up forcing an incompletion. Case in point, probably the biggest play of the Super Bowl, Chris Jones put a pressure on ran right over the guard, because they were rotating players on that defensive line, ran right over to guard, got in Brock Purdy's face, forced Brock Purdy through a bad throw. That pressure was huge, but that was a situation where the pressure was a good thing. There's a lot of times you put pressure on the quarterback. After that play, the 49ers kicked field goal, and then they pressured Mahomes. Mahomes ran for like 30 yards up the middle. According to those geniuses at PFF, both pressures are valid, but one impacted the game in a good way for the team. The other one impacted the play in a bad way. Yeah. Yeah, and they lump them all together, and so like it's a lot of times when people try to bring up the stats and everything, it's really, really misleading, because there's a big difference between a pressure that results in a good play and a pressure results in a bad play, and a lot of people don't realize it. Sometimes you just got turned on film. I watched a game like I think it was Dallas against the Rams, and Aaron Donald was just wrecking everything up front. But at the end of the game, he got credited with like one tackle, and that was it. And somebody tried saying, "Well, Aaron Donald didn't have a good game." I was like, "No, I watched it, and he destroyed everything." I mean, they couldn't run the ball. They had problems passing the ball, but it doesn't always show up on the stat sheet. By the way, I think he could be. I thought it was a reach at 36. There was some other I'm sorry. They traded with the Chargers. The Chargers traded up to 34. They got Ladd McConkey. Not a fan of either or, but then they got Polk. They traded down 5 spots to 39, and they got Polk at 39. And I was like, God, there's some other guys I like better. Adonai Mitchell went to the Colts at 54. That was one guy. I was talking to my dad today, and I was like, everybody's really high on the Chiefs draft, but what was the biggest complaint? That the Chiefs receivers drop passes. So what do the Chiefs do? They draft a receiver who has problems dropping the ball. That weighs less than I do. I'm not that excited about it, but Adonai Mitchell would have been the guy that I would have gone after instead. But I mean, played in the SEC, both at Georgia and at Texas, and he played well. And then the combine was ridiculous. Polk will get an opportunity to start, and I actually think that he could play inside outside. So he's going to be a guy I'm going to follow pretty closely, because I think that his development will go hand in hand with Drake May. I think if Polk ends up being a guy who has year one like 50 catches, 650 yards, and 5 touchdowns, then that will really help Drake May. And you're going to say 50, 650, and 5, Dan. That's not that big of a deal. And I understand, but they don't need him to be a star, but they need him to be productive. So, yeah, I can't stand PFF. I think they're terrible. For those of you who've known me for a while, know that I think very, very little of PFF. I cannot stand PFF. But Perry, this year I'm going to do a lot of fantasy football stuff. Afternoon Delight's going to have a lot of fantasy stuff, the way I want it to be. I'm going to help. I really want to help people out with their fantasy football teams this year. I really want to try to help people win some money. So this year I'm going to be doing a lot of fantasy football stuff. And I agree. I think I didn't like the Worthy pick at all. It was one of my least favorite first round picks. I mean, why would you draft a receiver that had problems with drops? And yeah, he got better last year, but this is not a guy who has great hands. This is a guy who's got great speed, but he's undersized. Now, I kept hearing Deshaun Jackson. Here, he's not a Deshaun Jackson type of guy. Okay, I watched Deshaun Jackson play at Cal. showing my age a little bit. I didn't really get that feel from Xavier Worthy. I thought he was the lesser of the two Texas receivers, and the Colts got Worthy at 51, if I remember correct. But yeah, I would have been happy if they traded up and got Dante Mitchell at 28. I'm like, hey, listen, man, here's a dude 6'2", 205, ran a 4.33. Watch out. I'm watching a guy like this, and I'm like, man. Yeah, Perry, I couldn't say it any better. Perry says, for me, if a wide receiver can't catch and run good routes, he's not first-round talent. He doesn't have great hands. His route running ability so-so, but what got him, is the 4.21. And great. You can run fast on that track. That's fantastic. And by the way, the speed shows up. He's not a guy that runs a 4.21 and then plays like he's a 4.5 guy. He plays like I've seen videos of him just like running away from people and just scaring the crap out of teams. I get that. But listen, if you're 160, 165, man, how are you going to fight that press? But I will say this about Worthy, like he does go into a good spot because you got Hollywood Brown who's going to be there, Travis Kelce who's going to be there, Rashid Rice going through some legal issues, but he's going to be there. They also have former second-round pick Sky Moore. They traded a third for Kadarius Toney, who was a first-round pick. Chiefs declined fifth-year option, which is not a real surprise, but yeah. When Keys is saying you guys need a good wide receiver coach, then you draft a wide receiver who can catch or run good routes, there's a problem. Worthy is a one-trick pony, and he's kind of a raw dude. And I mean, first of all, he's got put on some size, which will affect his speed. Don't get me wrong, he could put on 10 to 15 pounds and still be a 4.2 guy, but let's be honest, if you go from 160 to 190, you're going to slow down. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, Tyreek, man, welcome, brother. Xavier Howard would be a nice pickup for us because I just don't have trust in Watson and Williams. I would not mind Xavier Howard here at all. He's an excellent man corner. He's the type of guy that Spags absolutely loves. And I loved Joshua Williams. He's a fourth-round pick out of Fayetteville State. If he played at an SEC school, he would have been a second-round pick. He hasn't really developed. I actually thought that there was a good chance he might move to safety, but that's not the case. Watson almost looked better as a rookie. But Watson has size. They drafted a guy in the 6th round out of Tennessee, and the only reason he was a 6th-round pick is he ran a 4.59. Kind of looks like he's a 4.5 guy, but he's 6'1", 195, 200, and uses his hands well. He's very physical, and he's going to be one of these late-round guys. I think that it's going to be fun to watch in preseason. So hopefully I get the name right here, man. Thanks for the comment. This is a great one. And I do. I like that. I would love Xavier Howard because he's a guy that can come in. Trent McDuffie was the guy I was trying to think of. Trent McDuffie has to really step some things up, and I would love to get another guy because I don't think Watson or Williams is the guy that I really want to go into the season and say, hey, yeah, you're number 2. I 100% agree. Perry says, I think your best pick was the OT from BYU in your guys' draft. Yeah, Kingsley Sayamatea, Penei Sewell's cousin. I think he's going to be the day one starter at left tackle, and he's a guy that he's a guy could be a 12-year starter, go to like 4 or 5 Pro Bowls. He's got nothing but upside. Nothing but upside. Extremely athletic, extremely big, and just need to be coached up a little bit. But I'm expecting him to be our starting left tackle, and he's my favorite draft pick. We got a couple of 4th round picks I really liked. TCU tight end who played quarterback and then switched over to tight end, and that's the same thing that happened with Travis Kelce. Is that he was a high school quarterback, went to University of Cincinnati, got kicked off the team. His brother was on the team, Jason, and had him come back. And then they moved him to tight end. Well, now he's probably the greatest tight end in NFL history. Well, according to my top 10 tight ends of all time list, he's the greatest tight end in NFL history. Is he? Well, we'll find out. I think he is, but yeah. And then we also drafted a safety out of Washington State that I really, really like. Drawing a blank on his name. Are there any good veterans out there? Nope. I think there's a lot of good veterans. I think. Oh crap! No crap. Played on Cleveland with OBJ. They were Jarvis Landry. Okay, Jarvis Landry. I think just signed with Jacksonville. That's a good one. Xavier Howard's a guy I think looking for a home. Justin Simmons, and I'll be honest, the Chiefs really don't have a need for him, but Justin Simmons in the Lions secondary would scare me. Justin Simmons is an interception machine. It was kind of a cap casualty thanks to everything that's going on in Denver. But that's a guy I'm surprised hasn't been picked up yet. But that's a really good football player. I have a huge man crush on Justin Simmons. And he's a guy that, I still think he could play free safety, strong safety, but he's a guy, if Kansas City brought him in, I don't know how they would pay him, but yeah. I'm just waiting for Worthy to prove these haters wrong who thinks he's just speed on film. He reminds me a little bit of Waddle with a little bit of Tank Dell. I'm hoping so too. I kept on hearing Deshaun Jackson comparisons, but I really didn't see it. And we got Hollywood Brown, who I was much more excited about. It's kind of funny because Chiefs fans are excited about Xavier Worthy. I'm not really excited about Hollywood Brown. I would flip-flop him because I looked at Hollywood Brown and I'm like, man, when if he just blows up and the Chiefs could sign him? Because when if Hollywood Brown blows up and says, look, I'm a 4.2 guy. By the way, he ran Hollywood Brown ran a 4.27. All right. Played in Baltimore where they threw the ball like 20 times a game. He was with Arizona when they were having some issues. So this is his first time in an offense that's wide receiver friendly. Now, there was a possibility when he was with Arizona, but it didn't pan out that way. So when if he just says, you know what, look, I got Patrick Mahomes. I'm the fastest receiver on the team. At least I was until they drafted Xavier Worthy. I got Patrick Mahomes. I could just light it up every single year. This is great. I really was looking forward to him. It's funny because I always say that if you think your team's going to take a hometown discount, I always think that you're a little bit delusional because teams don't take a hometown discount. I swear a bug just flew on my glasses. Players really don't take hometown discounts, but I can see Hollywood Brown going, you know what? I could put up crazy numbers. I get to be with Patrick Mahomes. So maybe I'm not going to take 3 years for 50. I'll take 3 years for 40 and stay in Kansas City. But We'll find out. I hope he proves me wrong as well, but no, I'm not high on him. Willie's could be a steal for you guys. Which Wiley, yeah, Wiley's the Texas TCU tight end who seriously watch him play. He reminds me a lot. So it's funny. Travis Kelce wore 18 in college. This kid wore 19. Remember, he's for quarterback. So yeah. Do you think he wants a big deal, Simmons? Which player? I'm not sure which player you're talking about. Dakota 18. I think the Pats need a true X receiver and a true left tackle. I like the Patriots draft. I like the Patriots draft too. So they think Polk can be the guy. Now they drafted. So they flip flopped it. I really thought they should have drafted the tackle in the second round instead of the third. But Caden Wallace out of Penn State, that I had to look this up, by the way. I didn't have the Caden Wallace. There's some talk that he may be the starting left tackle. I don't know. Javon Baker is a true X receiver. I'll be honest with you, out of Baker and Polk, I think I like Baker better, but Javon Polk. Oh, Simmons, the veteran safety. Okay, I'm sorry. I was like, yes, so he was the highest paid safety in football. So he's not going to take like a 1 year, $2 million deal. But yeah, he does want a big deal. So I think Javon Baker and Polk could be that guy. I actually think Baker has more upside than Polk, I'll be honest with you, but both could be like that X receiver. They think Caden Wallace could be the guy, their third round pick. I would have flip-flopped them. I'm not saying take Wallace in the second round, but you could have got, I think, a better tackle than Wallace earlier in the draft. Matter of fact, Kingsley Sayamatea, who I think will start at left tackle for the Chiefs, he'd be a great fit for New England. Patrick Paul was the guy that I was really pounding the table for. He goes in the second round to Miami, and there's a good chance, depending on the situation, drawing a blank on Tyrion Armstead, the Dolphins left tackle. So he's just talking about retirement. But yeah, I really liked your draft. By the way, you're so Dakota, I'm not sure how familiar you are with me, but I've been saying this for a while. Joe Milton, the third, they're calling him a quarterback. He played quarterback at Tennessee, strongest arm in the draft. I've been saying for a while, I think he's better suited to play tight end. And I think 3 years from now, he'll be an NFL tight end. Him and Jakeem Bell, the tight end out of Florida State. Now, the reason why Jakeem Bell lasted till the seventh round, he's like 6'1", 6'1.5", I think. But he's 240, ran a 4.6, and he's got all the tools to be a really, really good tight end. If you can talk Milton, who, by the way, he's like 6'6", 230, 240, ran a 4.55. If you can convince either one of these guys, you have some night. You could use a lot of 12 personnel formations, some 13 personnel formations. And I really think that the Patriots are going to lean on Ramondre Stevenson this year. He's a guy that if he plays a full 17 games, Ramondre Stevenson, I think that he could be an MVP candidate because I think he's going to get like, let's just say he plays all 17 games. He's probably going to get like 20 touchdowns and 1,500 yards. And even though you have a rookie quarterback, he's an athletic dude with a big arm. You're not going to stack. You're not going to put 7 in the box. The old school expression was 8. I'm changing it now. Put 7 in the box. You're not going to put 7 in the box. But you have a guy, Ramondre Stevenson, who's 245 with speed. So, but if Wallace ends up being the starting left tackle, this is one of the best drafts in all of football. But your last 2 picks are guys that could be really, really big time weapons at tight end. I'm going to pound it that Milton needs to figure out, hey, look, I'm a better NFL tight end than quarterback. So Chiefs are banking not long. Chiefs could put Hollywood and Worthy stacked on one side, and one runs a crosser and one runs a streak. How do you guard that? it's going to be fun, and you will see these two together. You will see these two together. I'm hoping he will. And if I'm Hollywood Brown, apparently Hollywood Brown's in Texas. I think Hollywood Brown also, he went to Oklahoma. So basically here's the drill. It's kind of changed, but it used to be if you went to Oklahoma, you went to high school in Texas. That was it. I was like, except for like two guys that they recruited in other parts of the country. Every player from Oklahoma was from Texas, and so without looking it up, I just assumed Hollywood Brown. Oh, Hollywood Brown's from Florida. That's right. That's how he got the nickname Hollywood. But I know that him and Kadarius Toney flew down like not too long ago. But I know he's been working with Mahomes, so hopefully. Sky Moore's a guy that I also think hope that, like, because he actually regressed last year, but I'm hoping he bounces back, so we'll find out. When did Wiggins and Ayuk, Debo, the Patriots need to spend money on one of these guys? You know, to tell you the truth, Dakota 18, great comments here. I really think that they just want to draft younger guys and have them develop with May. And I'm going to tell you something. Javon Baker started his career at Alabama and just wanted more playing time. So. But I'm not high on Polk, but Baker, that guy you got in the 4th round, he's a guy with some talent. He ended up with the Saints. He ended up with the Saints in the 5th round. That's a perfect spot for him too, because I think that he'll end up backing up Derek Carr, and you never know. Jay Cruisin 7-1. You laughed because you thought it inbred's Hundan. No, I'm not getting that. I don't get it. I don't know where you came up with the inbreds thing from, but man, I'm glad you're here, brother. This is my boy right here. So I've mentioned this a few times. Denver Gators, the only one I've told about, Afternoon Delight, but I'm still playing around with that. But Denver Gators in the house, man. I love this guy. What's up, peeps? You bunch of football nerds. Yes. So I mean, you know, so I'm throwing this out there. So I wanted to kind of talk about this, kind of the way I see teams going, fantasy football rookies that you want to pay attention to, and some sleepers. But offensive and defensive rookie of the years is kind of one I wanted to go over. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. has got to be my favorite. So out of the 3 big receivers, Harrison, Aduze, and Neighbors, Harrison has the best quarterback. He'll have the number 1 option. I think they're going to be down in a lot of games, so he's going to put up some big numbers. Normally, rookie of the year, you have to have wins or go to the playoffs. I could see Harrison having a 1,300-yard season and Arizona winning 7 games. If Arizona wins 10 games and Harrison has 1,300 yards, then you'll definitely put 2 and 2 together. The 3 quarterbacks, I think, is Williams, Daniels, and McCarthy. I think May will kind of be limited. I think they're going to lean on the run. Penix won't see the field unless Cousins is down, and they're showing Cousins in like mini camps throwing balls, so I think he's fine. So Penix probably won't play at all, and I think Nix will take a little time to develop in Denver. So yeah. Which team took the biggest risk in the first 3 rounds? You could say Cincinnati. I was really high on their draft because I love Mims going to Cincinnati, but that's a huge risk. because you're banking on him playing next year with the limited experience. Trent Brown's also another guy that has had issues staying healthy over the years. So I mean, look, would he start 8 games? And you took him at 18. That's a huge, huge risk. In my opinion, I like it. Any team that took a quarterback, I love Penix. I still don't get it at 8. Minnesota's another one. Probably Minnesota, and I'll tell you why. You're banking on a rookie quarterback. You gave up a 3rd and a 4th in next year's draft to get Dallas Turner, who I loved at 18. Don't get me wrong, but you're banking on 2 rookies. I mean, you got to have. Here's the deal: McCarthy and Dallas Turner both have to play well this year, and. Okay, so here's the drill. You went from 13 games. You won 13 games 2 years ago. Okay, so you won 13 games, but you lost in the playoffs to a team that you beat the week before. Because if you remember, they beat the Giants. It was either in week 17 or 18, and then the Giants went up to Minnesota in the playoffs. Beat the Vikings, come back the next year, don't make the playoffs, but you played with 9 quarterbacks. Fair. Are you going to accept 13 wins and then back-to-back not making the playoff seasons? I mean, there's a lot of hype around Kevin O'Connell, and I think it's warranted. I think he's a fine coach. But what is he going to do? If they have a bad year, you're missing draft capital. Detroit and Green Bay look like they're primed for the playoffs. Chicago got their quarterback, and they got Oduzze. I mean, you also gave up. So here's the deal: they don't have a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round pick in next year's draft. So I would say the Vikings, probably. God, Murray comes. Oh yeah, I think Harrison has to be my favorite for offensive rookie of the year and rookie of the year. I keep looking at the defensive players, and I'll level with you. I think my favorite has to be Peyton Wilson. I think it has to be Peyton Wilson because he's going to the right spot, and he's going to be a Patrick Queen. And I really hope that these two get along, because I remember when they picked up from the Bears. Oh, shit. Signed a big contract with the Ravens. Went to Georgia. Number 58. Was like defensive player of the year with the Bears, and when they traded him. I'm bad with names. Great with faces. Love one of my favorite players. I'm drawing blank. Hopefully Patrick Queen takes Peyton Wilson under his wing and says, "Look, man, you there's nothing you can't do on the football field." Who's 58 for the Ravens? Okay, I just said like 15 things about him. Roquan, thank you, Denver Gator. So listen, Patrick Queen looks at Peyton Wilson and says, "Listen, I played with Roquan Smith, maybe the best middle linebacker in football. You're a better athlete," and he is. I'm not being a dick here. I'm just saying. So Patrick Wilson to me stays healthy, yeah. But Harrison and Murray should put up big numbers. Oh, it's all right. Hey, man, I'm just glad you're here, brother. The Bengals is number 1 for me. That's a big one, man. I would say it's the Vikings because they gave up a second, a third, and a fourth in next year's draft. And then here's the deal: McCarthy and Dallas Turner both have to play well. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, yeah, well, the Houston Texans did it last year and it worked. It doesn't work that way, especially with quarterbacks. By the way, did McCarthy throw for 300 to 400 yards every game at Michigan, or did he throw for 150? And real fast here. I mean, I'm not saying Minnesota. Here's the deal. Ever since I didn't understand letting go of Dalvin Cook at all, and I know they added some running backs, but I mean, Aaron Jones is I mean, yeah, I'm pulling for him, but he's on a 1-year deal. Ty Chandler, okay. Keeney, Nakon, I don't know. Myles Gaskin was actually playing pretty good with the Dolphins, but unless you run a 4-3, you can't play on the Dolphins. But so they got some decent running backs. They do, but let's be honest. I mean, he's going to have to do a lot more he did in college. I keep forgetting about Sam Darnold, which I still think Sam Darnold should be a starter, but can someone explain to me the system that Van Pelt wants to put into Patriots offense? Okay, I can't do that specifically, but I can go back and kind of explain that he was with Cleveland most recent. All right, let me see if I remember that correctly, because I know he spent some time in Cleveland. So let me make sure I'm just not making stuff up here, because I think that misspelled out. So I'm pretty sure he spent the last I'm sorry about that. I hit the wrong thing here, because all right, hold on. Give me 1 second here, because I think the last time he was a coach was in I want to say Cleveland. Yeah, okay, yeah. So he's the offensive coordinator in Cleveland. Okay, I wanted to double remember that, or double check. Okay, so he's with the Bills. The Bills canned him, goes to Cleveland. So here's what Cleveland did. They built the offense. So, what's it? Ron Shadorsky. He actually won Coach of the Year last year for the Browns. Drawing a complete blank on his name. Shadesky, something like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. When he got there, part of the reason they hired him was because he did a good job working with quarterbacks. It was quick rhythm offense, bootlegs, and it's very system friendly. And they really thought it would work with Baker Mayfield. Whatever reason, he part of it was Baker wanted too much money. I also think he clashed, and I don't know why. The Deshaun Watson to Cleveland kind of feels like square peg round hole. Okay, but if you watch the Cleveland offense, that's probably what you're going to get with Alex Van Pelt. And you're going to get a run, Stefanski. Thank you, Denver Gator. So you're going to get a run-heavy offense. Who's probably going to be your main guy on offense? It's going to be Ramondre Stevenson, your 245-pound running back with crazy athleticism. Okay? You're going to get a run-heavy offense. That's what you're going to get. That's the simplest thing. But passing-wise, quick rhythm, very, very, very quarterback-friendly. When I say quarterback-friendly, it allows for a lot of easy completions. You're going to see a lot of bootlegs. You're going to see a lot of 1-2 quick throws. You're not going to see a lot of audible. You're not going to see a lot of adjustments. You're going to see something that's pretty simple by NFL standards, but it's very quarterback friendly. If you watch what Baker Mayfield did, Baker Mayfield's first year with Stefanski in Cleveland, he looked pretty good. then they had the contract issue, and then he had some injury issues as well. But watch that first year with Baker Mayfield and Stefanski together in Cleveland. And I want to quote you, that was 2020. That was the year they beat Pittsburgh in the playoffs. It was like 48-37. And it was just really weird. Like Pittsburgh had like 3 defensive touchdowns in the first quarter or something like that. Watch that. And by the way, that offense revolves completely around Nick Chubb. So what they do is they base everything off the run game. It's a little different than what teams are doing now. So teams are now, more pass heavy. This is going to be a run heavy offense. But what you're going to see passing wise is some really easy throws. You're going to see a lot of bootlegs. He's not going to stay in the pocket that much. They're going to move the pocket around. You're really going to like this offense. When I say you're going to like this offense, I don't know you and everything. Okay, but it's a quarter. By the way, Alex Van Pelt played quarterback for a long time in the NFL. He was a backup, played at Pittsburgh. He was a smaller guy, didn't have a big arm, stayed in the NFL for a couple of years, did what a lot of guys should do. And by the way, Alex Van Pelt will be an NFL head coach in probably in the near future. So this is a good guy to get in. You're going to like it. Hopefully I answered your question. Maybe the Falcons GM gets fired or resigned. I think the front office. So here's the drill. This was kind of weird because when they fired Arthur Smith, they kept the general manager, and I can't think of who it is, but they brought in a whole new front office. Remember, they brought in the Patriots way, and those guys all came over from New England back in like 2008 or something, and they cleaned house because they got rid of their quarterback, or they got rid of the coach, and they got Arthur Smith, and it didn't work, so they just cleaned house, right? So anyway, they brought in Arthur Smith and a general manager, and I'm drawing a blank on who the general manager is. Year one, Arthur Smith wanted Kyle Pitts, if I remember correctly, and the general manager wanted a quarterback. If I might be foggy on the details, but here's what I'm not foggy on. It went public that the general manager and the head coach were clashing. And how do you lose games in the NFL when your general manager and head coach are not on the same page? So when they brought back the guy who they should have kept in the first place, I'm not really sure what they're thinking. And it really seems like I have no idea. I can't speak for it, but I know when Arthur Smith was the head coach, he won the power struggle, but couldn't win any games, or not enough games, so he was fired. I have no idea what's going on in Atlanta right now, because I really thought they would go quarterback. Then they signed Cousins, so they're not going quarterback. Now I have no idea what they're doing, because when they re-signed their head coach. I'm drawing blanks on names today. By the way, public service announcement. This is why you call your girlfriend or wife baby. But you're right, Perry. I have no idea what they're thinking in Atlanta, and it's a shame because if they went with Latu or Dallas Turner or even Verse, they're my favorite to win that division. And once you get into the playoffs, look at the weapons that they have. They have 2 absolute studs in the secondary. Yeah, an edge rusher. You got some decent linebackers. Decent. But once you get there, look, you got 2 really good running backs. A guy with no ceiling in Bijan Robinson. Denver Gators okay on Kyle Pitts. And then you also got Drake London, a guy that has a lot of potential. But since you went with the quarterback, I have no idea what they're doing. I can too. He's made a lot of questionable trades. I think he's doing. I agree. I couldn't. Yeah, I don't know why. I'm forgetting. Denver Gator. Thank you for helping me. The wide receiver the Bengals took from Alabama is an off field. Yeah. So here's the drill. The Bengals. It was kind of fun what the Bengals did because they took some risks with Amarius Mims and I think it's Jermaine Burton in the first and third round. But you're an offensive minded head coach, so you took massive risks on guys with excellent potential. And I think they both went to the right spots. Now, Marius Mims is 6'8", 340. For the first time in his life, he's going to not be the biggest guy in the room when he walks in that Bengals offensive line room. That's kind of why I like it. And he's also, hopefully, Trent Brown and Orlando Brown Jr. take him under his, put their arm around him, say, hey, listen, little guy, we're going to help you because both of us made over $100 million. And it should be obvious by the very second mini camp that he's got much better footwork. So he's going to the right spot. Jermaine Burton's going to the right spot because you're playing hardball T. Higgins right now. So what you're doing here is you're trying to, hey, look, you can play next to Chase and you're going to get a lot of passes thrown your way. If you want to fuck up, hey, those balls are going to go to T. Higgins. And we'll sign T. Higgins. You're a third-round pick. You're expendable. It doesn't happen often, but third-round picks get cut. And then what they did in the second and the third round is they drafted a couple defensive tackles, which are solid doubles. So they're swinging for defenses with the offensive side of the ball. You have an offensive-minded head coach. Then you get solid guys that fit Amaruno's defense on the defensive side of the ball. Because they lost C.J. Reader, well, they added two guys on to play defensive tackle, which is genius. Year before, they added Miles Murphy, a guy I loved. So the rumor was Kansas City was trying to leapfrog. Kansas City and Dallas were talking about trade. And everybody thought Kansas City was going to draft Mozzie Smith. No, they were going to draft Miles Murphy. And they settled for FAU, who played like in 5 snaps this year or something. Drawing a blank when you say Gibson. I'm okay. I'm sorry. I did draw. Yeah, I completely forgot about Antonio Gibson. And Antonio Gibson, believe it or not, I remember watching him at Memphis. And when Washington drafted him, I was convinced he was going to play receiver because that's what he played in college. But he's 6'2", 220. And Washington was like, no, you're going to play running back. And he struggled year one, and he put on some weight. And I thought, like, this was a guy who had all the tools to be a star, but for whatever reason, he fell out of favor with Riviera. But you got some good running backs. I kind of forgot about Gibson. Kevin Harris is another guy I kind of like too. I kind of forgot about him, but he was a former 6th-round pick out of South Carolina. But so here's the thing, Dakota. You're really going to like this offense, and Drake May's going to have some success, but I don't think he's going to put up huge numbers. This offense is going to revolve around Ramondre Stevenson, and Ramondre Stevenson needs to stay healthy and have a big year. I'm gonna level with you. I love the Patriots defense. The only issue I have is I'm not sold. They got some good players on that offensive line. I remember they drafted Sidney Sal out of Eastern Michigan in the 4th round. There's talks about him being a 2nd-round player. I didn't watch a lot of Eastern Michigan, so I can't validate it. But I do know at like the East-West Shrine game at Senior Bowl, he played well. They drafted Cole Strange in the 1st round for some weird reason. He's just been okay. If the offensive line works and the running game has some holes in it and Ramondre Stevenson stays healthy, I think the defense is going to be great. And I think the Patriots can win 10 games and get into the playoffs. I really believe that because before players started going down, Christian Gonzalez looked all world. Like I was watching Christian Gonzalez. I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. Because they were just like, hey, look, we know you're a rookie. What was it? Second game of the season. They're playing Miami. He's the one covering Tyreek Hill and doing a good job. That's crazy. But yeah, he looked like he was going to be that good. By the way, Keon White was like one of my draft crushes, and if they unlock that potential, he's a former tight end who put on some size. And at Georgia Tech, they used him everywhere. It was like nose tackle, defensive end, outside linebacker, and he's a guy year two may take that jump up. There's some if you're a fan of defensive football, the Patriots are going to be a fun team to watch this year, and they could be sneaky good. They're a team. I'm really saying, I know you're going to have a rookie quarterback, but this is a team that can win some games. But as far as Drake May winning Rookie of the Year, I really don't see it because I really don't think he'll have an opportunity to put the same numbers as some of these other guys. The pressure is on Browns to win their division. There's a lot of pressure on the Browns. I mean, you get to the playoffs. You were favored on the road, and Houston just really outcoached you. Really outcoached you. Deshaun Watson and Stefanski it just feels like oil and water. But yeah, there's a lot of pressure, and the AFC North's tough. It's a very tough division. But yeah, I think the Browns. I don't know. I don't think they have to win the division, but I think they have to win a playoff game. Yeah, I'm pulling up the Patriots roster here, but I mean, there's some things to like here about we need more Patriots fans here. Keaton Talk Sports is a Patriots and Chiefs fan. So for me, the coaches on the hot seat are Dabo, McDermott, Stefanski, the Cowboys coach. Yeah. Lions players need to show something are J-Mo, Pascal, Levo. So Ozarike is a guy I really think could get cut or traded. My surprise team this year. So it's kind of funny. I wanted to go over that. I want to go over because every year there's a first to worst. Okay, every year there's a first to worst, and I wanted to go over the 8 last place teams. Last year was Houston. Houston was worst in the AFC North, and they went first. So I'm going to go over the 8 teams, and I'm going to give you my pick of who will go from worst to first. I'm going to give you my pick here. And let's start off. We'll start off with the NFC West. Arizona Cardinals. I think there's a chance that I think there's a chance it'll be better than Seattle. What do you need? You need a quarterback. Well, you got one. Okay, you give him a weapon. Trey Benson's a guy, and keep an eye on him when it comes to fantasy football. Get him late because I think he could have a big year. And James Conner has also been susceptible to injuries. You got some really good players in the draft. Look at that division, though. San Francisco and LA. Ooh. NFC North, Minnesota is technically, well, according to Pro Football, but I'll be honest with you, I don't remember which one was worse, but I'm going with this. So Minnesota. Look, Green Bay and Detroit won playoff games last year. You got a rookie quarterback. I think they have a better chance than the Cardinals, but not much. NFC South, Carolina Panthers. I That's a possibility. They made some. They really rolled the dice with raw players. But it's Jonathan Brooks or Jonathan Harris, the running back from Texas. If he's healthy and back to form, he possibly could have been. He was the first running back in the draft. Okay. A lot of people think that he has a chance to, if he didn't get injured, to be a first round running back. If he's that type of player, and a lot of this has to do with Ike Ekwonu, a guy that I thought was going to be a stud at left tackle. He's just been okay. They figure out the offensive line. Canales works his magic on Bryce Young. They figure out some holes on defense. Carolina is definitely a team that could go worse first, because I think the NFC South is terrible. I like what Tampa Bay's done. I'm still confused about in Atlanta, and with the Saints. God, there's a lot of questions with the Saints. Carolina has a better chance than Arizona or Minnesota because that division's terrible. Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels, maybe, but man, are they really going to be able to overthrow Dallas and Philly? I don't see this year. So in the NFC, the team that has the best chance to go worst to first, I think, is easily the Carolina Panthers. And seriously, you could win that division with 8 games. It may happen. In the North, the Bengals. Burrow stays healthy. That's a Super Bowl team. Chargers, I think, are a year away, but you got Herbert, a great draft. I haven't talked that much about the Chargers draft. Very, very impressed with their draft. Really like what Harbaugh's doing, but you can tell it's a work in progress. All right. Tennessee, I've been saying this over and over and over again. As Tennessee just looks like square peg, round hole. And my surprise team is going to be the New England Patriots, because I love the defense. I like the talent. I have some questions about the offensive line and the receiver. But I feel good about the quarterback position. I think you can win with Jacoby Brissett. And I think that this offense will be good enough and I think Drake May is going to start day one. I really believe that. I think Drake May is going to be the opening day starter. I really think that defense plays as good as they could. This could be a 10-win team. So my surprise team is the New England Patriots. But I really want to see them fix the offensive line. And Polk has to step up and Baker has to step up as rookies. So my surprise team this year, I'm going to go with the New England Patriots. 49ers want to run. I agree completely. Denver Gator was adamant that he thought that the Rams would win that division. And I'll be honest with you, I do think that the Rams might win that division. I think it's a race in the NFC West. I really do. I think the Rams and the Niners are going to go neck and neck. I think San Francisco took a step back. No team had more rookies. Was it more rookie snaps? And it was double the other team because they had so many rookies. And then what do? They get a pair of Florida State teammates to play on that front seven. So there's a lot to like. And by the way, Cooper Kupp, he's going to come back healthy. You have Stafford, who's going to be a Hall of Famer. We were debating Russell Wilson. And I think he'll be in Canton. There's no debate. Stafford's going to be in Canton. Stafford has maybe in Cooper Kupp and Puka Nagata. I'm butchering the name. Best receiving duo. Kyron Williams was playing phenomenal football last year. Get him a helper at running back. Somebody who's going to help out. I think Blake Corum, sneaky pick in fantasy football. Take him really late. But if Kyron Williams goes down, you want to sign Blake Corum as fast as you can because he'll put up some big numbers in McVay's offense. So if you go into this season and you told me, hey, Dan, I think the Rams are going to win the West, I'm not going to say no. Perry asked a great question. Do you think Denver, Vegas, and the Chargers improve enough to challenge Kansas City this year? No, absolutely not. Denver starting with a rookie quarterback. Vegas, I think, has the best chance. I'll be honest with you, but I know that they don't believe in Gardner Minshew long term. All right, they don't believe that's not the answer. They took a swing and a miss, and there's going to be some good quarterbacks coming out in this draft. But in 2025, there is going to be some good quarterbacks. It's kind of funny because 2025 is going to be the opposite of this year. There's going to be like this year, I think it was like 23 or 22 offensive players in round one. It's going to be 20 to 22 defensive players next year. Some really, really good defensive players too in this draft, 2025. But there's going to be some quarterbacks, and the Raiders are going to probably trade the farm for one. Chargers got the quarterback, but I mean, it's really just a question of how fast Harbaugh can get things moving. I think it's going to take. I think this year's kind of a hey, and he's going to say all the right things. Talent-wise, Chargers, yes, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time, at least 1 year. The second best team in the AFC West, I think this year is going to be Vegas. I really believe that because the defense was doing well. Losing Jacobs is going to hurt. It really is. But Minshew, I think, can hold down the fort. I think the Raiders could surprise and get to 8 to 10, somewhere between 8 to 10 wins, but we'll find out. Do you think the 49ers sign Purdy to a big deal that will close their window? I'll be honest with you. I think their window's closing right now. Trent Williams is their best player offensively. I understand, CMC gets the hype and Deebo Samuel, Brandon. Trent Williams is their best player, and he'll be 35 or 36, and Father Time's undefeated. And he, by the way, when he missed 3 games, that's when the 49ers had that 3-game losing streak. So you can tell. So how much does he have it left in the tank? That was one of the smartest things they did in this draft was they drafted an offensive lineman, so they boosted the offensive line. Purdy will sign a big deal, but I mean they have to figure out what to do when Trent Williams hangs it up, which is going to be any day now. Let's face it, CMC, Kittle, Deebo Samuel, these guys are all going to miss time with injuries. The question is how much. CMC's played a full season. I kept on saying he's going to get hurt, and he won't. You really think that's going to happen again this year? When he gets over 300, 350 touches? Probably not. I think the window's really closed already. And I don't want to say this because I got a lot of Lions love and I feel like I'm pandering, but I think the Lions closed the window because the Niners took a step back. The Lions so far have taken a step forward. What team's going to be better in 2024? I would say the Lions, but I'm also looking at some of these other teams in the NFC, and I'm like, you got to watch out for these guys. I mean, Philly and Dallas just have crazy talent. The Rams may be the better team in the division. Green Bay almost beat the Niners in the playoffs. I mean, they came close. I mean, I can argue. I mean, it's going to be a fun year, but I'll be honest. I think that there's a chance the window's already closed. I want to wait and see because if Trent Williams he plays 17 and he's the same Trent Williams, that team's going to be really good. I think so. Herbert has the big contract. Herbert seems like it's kind of fun because it was funny. I was talking to somebody, and it's like, it's kind of cool because we're different types of personalities. I'm kind of high strung, and you're kind of laid back, and I think Harbaugh's kind of a hyperactive type of guy, and Herbert's laid back. So I think so. I do think so, but I was playing around and I could never get it to work. Where you trade Herbert and you draft JJ if you're the Chargers, but I was like, I think they'll get along fine. But keep in mind, Harbaugh wants to run the ball, and I think Herbert will be okay with that, but I'm not 100% sure. I think so, but I don't know. They took a receiver in the first round. There's been more talk about Ayuk, but there has been some talk about Debo. Possible. I'm not really sure. I think the 49ers are kind of doing some weird stuff. And I'm kind of interested in the direction because bottom line, if they sign Purdy to a big deal, you can't keep Ayuk, you can't keep Debo. You some of those defensive players that are making big money are starting to get up there in age as well. I mean, there's going to be the 49ers are going to have to make some tough decisions. They went kind of all in this last year. They came up short, but they did get in. That's up for you to decide. Is it worth it to get to a Super Bowl and lose or not? I don't know. Me personally, I'd rather lose in the playoffs than lose in the Super Bowl. I don't know. I think a lot of people would feel different, but that's just me. Could be. Guys, I'm going to wrap up here. Just friendly reminder, my social media links are below. I'm going to set up a new email here in the near future. I have the original, the Dan Show email. I've kind of not used it, but some people were using it. That's actually how Keaton Talk Sports found me. He emailed me. I'm hoping to get him on this summer. I'll be on every Friday, and then when football season starts, I have some plans in the works. But before I announce what I'm going to do, I kind of want to tweak some things first, get some things figured out. But I will be doing play-by-play for all the Chiefs games this year, so I'm looking forward to doing that. And guys, listen, enjoy your weekend, and I'll be back next Friday.